You're lying there, beneath thin blankets, the weight of stillness pressing into your shoulders like a quiet hand. You don't have to do anything right now but let yourself be held by this moment. Just as it is, no effort, no fixing, no chasing after what's already gone. You are not responsible for remembering or naming or solving. There's nothing to make, nothing to finish, and nothing to carry forward from here. The mind can wander like a loose thread in an old sweater, drifting, unraveling, finding its way back into the dark without needing to be pulled. This is a calming session for rest, not medical advice. If sleep trouble keeps up, a doctor can help. But tonight, you don't need answers. You're not being asked to quiet your thoughts or gather them in one place. No task is waiting. No word needs to stick. Just listen as the voice moves through small spaces, light as breath on glass. And you are free to let every moment pass like a paper lantern floating past an open window. You don't have to follow any of this. Not even one sentence has to land or be understood. If your mind slips into silence, that's fine. If it floats away mid-thought, that's exactly how it should be. There is no goal here, only the soft shape of time unhurrying itself. You don't need to remember anything, and nothing needs to be kept. Let each phrase fade like a half-remembered tune left behind in a room long after someone has gone. The melody you can't name, it's not lost, not really. It just isn't meant to be caught tonight. Maybe it will come back tomorrow, or maybe it won't. Either way, there's no need to summon it. The ghost of music doesn't live in effort, only in stillness, like a shadow that stays even when the light turns off. You don't have to figure out what you're hearing. You don't have to picture anything at all. If your eyes are closed, they stay closed. No need to open them for anything. If thoughts come, let them pass like clouds over water. Not stopping, not holding, just letting the surface ripple and smooth again. This isn't a technique. It's not a method, not even a practice. You're not being trained or guided through any step-by-step process. There is no "your turn" here. There is only this voice drifting softly ahead of you, taking up space like dust in sunlight. And you are simply invited to be where the air feels soft. You don't need to feel anything special. No joy, no relief, no deep peace, just rest as it comes, however faintly. If your body sinks deeper into the mattress, that's natural. If a hand drifts toward your chest or tucks under your arm without intention, let it stay. You're not doing anything wrong by being tired. Even if you can't hear every word clearly, even if some lines dissolve before they reach you, that's part of how this works. You don't have to catch everything. In fact, missing things is what lets the rest slip through. There are no gaps to fill and no silence to fear. You're not being tested on memory or focus. There is nothing to recall later, nothing to prove, not even a story to build from this moment. Just the slow motion of sound moving across still air, like a ribbon pulled gently through a needle's eye. Whether your thoughts are spinning in loops, whether they've gone quiet and empty, whether you're aware of the hum behind the walls or the distant whisper of wind against glass, none of it matters. You don't need to fix any part of this, not even the feeling that something is missing, because what's missing now might be exactly what needs to stay unnamed. You are here for one thing only: to let go without trying to understand why you're letting go. And if your mind drifts into stillness faster than it should, if sleep comes sooner than expected, then good. That wasn't a failure. It was the point all along. There is no need to stay awake because it's time, or I haven't done enough. You are allowed to stop trying, to let the weight of your limbs settle deeper into support, to surrender not through effort, but simply by letting go of the idea that you must keep doing something. You don't have to be present for every single word. If a sentence arrives and slips away before it forms in your ears, that's okay. You don't need to notice everything. You're not being graded on attention span or mental clarity. The voice is speaking slowly enough so that even silence can stretch out like warm wool between phrases. If you find yourself thinking about the last line, paper lanterns, and wondering what they look like, what color their light might be, whether they float high above rooftops or drift through empty hallways, just let it go. Don't follow it. Don't imagine them glowing in a courtyard or hanging from a porch eave. That's not the point of this drifting. You don't need to see anything at all. You're not being asked to paint pictures, reconstruct memories, or even feel emotions. There is no instruction, only a quiet hum moving through space like heat rising off pavement on a summer night. And you are just here, breathing softly, letting the body soften as if it has been waiting for this permission all along, to stop pretending there's something to do, to stop trying to be alert or awake or in control of your own mind. Even if your thoughts keep returning to that melody, faint, half-formed, like a tune just out of reach, you don't need to chase after it. You can let the silence hold it instead. Let it float behind closed eyes until it dissolves into something else entirely. Not forgotten, but simply no longer urgent. You're not meant to remember this session later. Not even one image or word will be useful in the morning. It's okay if you don't recall a single thing when you wake up. That's how it should be. Now, let your fingers rest where they are. Let the blanket stay exactly as it is. No need to adjust. no reason to shift, and let the voice carry on without any demand for response. There is no now. There is no next. There's only this quiet moment unfolding in soft increments, like rain falling slowly through a canopy of leaves, each drop landing with its own small weight, then gone. You don't have to be anywhere else. You are already where you need to be, lying down, eyes closed, ears open to the hush between words. And if your breathing slows just slightly, that's fine. If it deepens without warning, that's natural. No correction needed. The room is still, not empty, not full, just holding space for sound to pass through like air through a cracked door. And now, the drifting begins. A sock left on the floor by the bed, and a key turning in its lock. Neither one meant for each other, but both quiet with purpose. You're not asked to wonder why they're there. You don't need to solve what it means that the sock is bare, or whether the key fits anything anymore. A train whistle heard through walls at midnight, and a teacup cooling on a windowsill. One sound far away, one close by, both drifting in time with nothing to connect them. You don't have to imagine the platform outside. You don't need to picture who might be drinking tea or waiting for a signal. Just let it sit. Two things that exist without needing each other. A book left open on a table, pages slightly curled at the edges, and the smell of old paper, faint but persistent, like memory in reverse. You're not asked to read anything, not even one line. You don't need to remember what was written there yesterday or whether the story continues into another chapter. A single thread pulled loose from a sweater's sleeve, and the way light catches on dust motes in a sunbeam that never quite reaches the floor, not because it's blocked, but because it's already passed through the room like breath exhaled too slowly to feel. You don't need to name what it was meant for, or if it ever had an end. The thread just hangs there, still fluttering from where it broke, and that's enough. You're not asked to knot it back together. Not even one tug is required. A pencil stub lying on a desk with no paper around it, its tip worn down into something blunt and soft, like the edge of an old memory rubbed thin by time. You don't need to wonder who left it behind or whether they were writing about anything important. The point isn't completion, just presence. It's not unfinished because it hasn't been used. It's finished simply for being where it is. A jar with no label, sitting on a shelf too high to reach, the kind of container that once held something sweet, or maybe salted, but now holds only quiet and a little hollow air inside its glass walls. You don't have to guess what was in it. Not even the faintest scent lingers anymore, just the shape of the vessel as if it remembers being full. A single note pressed between 2 pages of an old notebook. Not a letter, not a poem, but something scribbled hastily and then forgotten, like a word that meant too much to be spoken aloud and too little to keep in writing. You're not asked to read it. Not even once. You don't need to know what it says or why someone folded the paper just so. A door left slightly open between rooms, not for passage, but because someone stepped through and then stopped mid-motion, as if realizing they weren't meant to go anywhere at all. You're not asked to close it, not even to peek inside. The crack is enough, a breath of air passing through like sound without source. A pair of glasses balanced on the edge of a nightstand, one lens slightly fogged from warmth, the other clear and cold-looking in the dim light. They don't belong to anyone right now. They aren't waiting for eyes to return or for hands to lift them back into place. Just resting, quietly. A melody that starts but doesn't finish. Not a song you know, not one your body remembers from any past moment, yet somehow familiar, like something dreamed and then lost before waking. It's just there, humming in the air between thoughts, soft enough to be mistaken for silence. You don't have to follow it. You don't need to identify its name or trace where it came from. It isn't calling your attention. It's only passing through. A shadow stretching across a wall that doesn't belong to any object nearby, not cast by the lamp, not blocked by furniture, just there, long and thin, as if something moved slowly behind you without making sound. You don't need to turn around or ask what it is. You're not responsible for explaining its shape. The window slightly ajar in the dead of night, not opened wide enough to let wind through, but just enough that air can shift, cool and quiet, like breath between 2 stillnesses. You don't have to wonder if anyone walked by outside or what they might be thinking. The air moves on its own. A sock with no matching pair, left in the laundry basket after all others were folded away, not a mistake, but an absence that feels settled now, like it's been there long enough to belong. You're not asked to find the other one, not even to care if it ever existed. A key dropped into a pocket and never taken out again, not because of forgetfulness, but because it stopped being useful at some point and was allowed to stay weightless now in fabric, no longer tied to any door or lock. You don't need to remember what the key opened. You're not asked to use it. A teardrop that fell onto a page years ago and dried into a faint mark, not from sorrow, just from something too quiet to name. A moment when feeling had nowhere else to go but down. Now it's only a stain on paper, barely visible in daylight, almost erased by time. You're not asked to mourn it, not even to notice. A train that passed through the station without stopping, No announcement, no signal, just wheels rolling over rails with steady rhythm, and then silence returning as if nothing had ever happened. You don't need to imagine who boarded or where they were going. The motion is enough, its passage marked only by absence. The photograph turned face down on a shelf, not because it was broken, but because it no longer needed to be seen. The image behind glass has already lived in your mind too long, and now it's resting, letting light fall over the back of it instead. You don't need to turn it around. Not even once. A word whispered into a pillow that wasn't meant for ears, but for sleep. Not loud enough to wake anyone, only soft enough to settle into cotton like breath held too long and finally released. You're not asked to remember what the word was. You don't have to know if it made sense or whether someone would understand. The chair pulled slightly out from a table, as if someone stood up mid-thought and then just walked away without saying anything. No one's coming back for it. No reason to pull it in again. You're not asked to fix the space. Not even to notice how far it sits from where it should be. The radio playing faintly in another room, tuned to a station that doesn't broadcast news or music. Just static and occasional bursts of something like breathing. Not loud enough to hear clearly, but close enough that you can feel its rhythm through the floorboards. You don't need to turn it off. Not even to listen. The clock ticking in a hallway where no one walks anymore, not because it broke, but because time is still passing, slow and unobserved, like thought without direction. You're not asked to count seconds or measure minutes. You're just here, letting the sound pass through as if it were air. The blanket folded neatly at the foot of the bed, waiting for someone who won't come back tonight, not abandoned, but simply expected elsewhere. It's been there long enough that its creases have become part of the stillness. You don't need to smooth them out or imagine what warmth it might hold. You're already covered. A name written once in a notebook and never again. Just letters pressed into paper with no follow-up. Like a word said aloud but not meant for reply. You don't have to recall who it was for. Not even if the handwriting is familiar. The bird's wing brushing against glass at dawn. Too quick to see, too soft to hear, leaving only a faint tremor in air and memory. You're not asked to find where it went or what it meant. The touch itself was enough. The window shade lowered halfway, blocking half the light but not all of it, just enough that shadows pool on the floor like liquid, still and cool. You don't need to adjust it. Not even if your body feels warmer in one spot than another. A doorbell that rang once in an empty house. No answer. No movement afterward. Only silence returning heavier than before, not because of loneliness. but because some sounds are meant for the air alone. A thread between two worlds that never connects, just hangs loose, like something unfinished on purpose, a space left open so nothing has to be filled. A melody that hums just behind your ear, not loud enough to name, not clear enough to follow, something like a tune remembered from before sleep began, or perhaps a chord progression that never fully formed but still lingers in the space between breaths. You don't have to catch it, not even once. It's already here, drifting through the air like dust in sunlight, soft and unclaimed. No one wrote it down. No one sang it aloud. Only the quiet of absence has kept it alive. A tune that exists because it was never completed, because it wasn't meant for any listener, just this moment, right now, where nothing needs to be finished. A piano key pressed once and left down, not in play, not in silence, but in suspension between two states. The note doesn't ring out. It only holds its shape like a breath caught in the throat of time. You don't need to lift your finger. Not even if the sound is fainter than memory. It's already been played, and now it waits, still vibrating beneath the surface of quiet. A music box winding down inside a forgotten suitcase. Not broken, just stopping, like something that once kept rhythm but no longer has a reason to keep time. The last turn of the key leaves only the ghost of motion in the gears, and then nothing at all except the pause between one moment and the next. You don't have to open it. Not even if you feel the weight of what's inside. Just let the silence grow heavier than the music ever did. A violin string that hasn't been touched in years, stretched taut across a case with dust on its edge. Not broken, not loose, just waiting for a hand that might never come back. It remembers how to vibrate. But no one is left who knows what sound should follow. You don't need to pluck it. Not even if the air above it feels thinner than usual. A melody made of silence. Something like the space between two notes in a song your mind has never heard, where only absence can carry the shape of music, not empty, just waiting for meaning that will never come. You don't have to fill it. Not even if your chest tightens slightly at the thought of what might be missing. A voice humming in another room, soft and low, like someone singing a tune they've forgotten the words to, not loud enough to follow, just close enough for you to feel the vibration through walls, as though sound were made of touch rather than air. It's not your voice. It's not anyone's voice that matters. Just a hum, drifting through floorboards and old plaster like something meant only for rooms without people. A sheet of music left open on a stand, pages blurred from time, ink faded to gray, notes smudged by fingers that moved once but never returned. The first line is half remembered, the last chord unresolved. You don't have to read it. Not even if the silence between lines feels louder than any note ever could. A piano bench with a single dent in the wood, not from sitting, but from leaning, as though someone once rested their head on its edge and let thought drift into stillness. No one's been there since. No trace of breath or body weight remains, just the faint impression where warmth used to be. You don't need to sit down. Not even if your back aches in sympathy with the shape that left behind. A record spinning slowly on a turntable, not playing music but moving through space like it still believes it's being heard. The needle rests above the groove, not touching, not failing, just suspended between intention and action. You don't have to start it. Not even if the silence feels like anticipation of something that never arrives. The chord that starts in one key and ends in another. A shift so subtle it only lives in the space between your ribs, where sound becomes feeling before it ever reaches your ears. Not wrong, just drifting, like thought without direction, like memory without name. You don't have to follow it. Not even if your body tilts slightly as though drawn toward an invisible note. The hummingbird paused mid-flight outside the window, wings still in motion, but no forward progress. Suspended between two thoughts, not yet choosing where to go or what to drink from next. You don't need to open the glass. Not even if it's close enough that your breath fogs the pain with shared air. Just let it hang there, like a pause in music so long it becomes its own kind of song. A door left slightly ajar, not inviting anyone in, not keeping anything out, just existing between closed and open like a moment suspended after someone said something, but before they turned away. You don't have to push it shut. Not even if the draft feels cooler than the rest of the room. The echo of a lullaby that never had words. Only rhythm, only warmth, only the way a voice might cradle a child in dark air without needing language. Not sung aloud, just held in your throat like something you've always known but can't remember learning. You don't have to sing it. Not even if your lips tremble slightly at the memory of how soft it used to be. A key that fits no lock, polished smooth by time and hands that once tried. Now sitting on a windowsill where sunlight touches it only in fragments. Not lost, just unneeded, like something meant for a door that no longer exists. You don't have to return it. Not even if its weight feels familiar against your palm. A shadow cast by a shape that isn't there. Not a person, not a chair, not anything solid, but the soft outline of absence where light once met air and left a ghost behind. You don't need to name what's missing. Not even if it looks like something you've seen before in dreams. A sound made by nothing. Just the quiet hum of wires in the wall, or the slow creak of floorboards settling at midnight, or the faintest sigh from inside your own chest. Not music, not noise, just motion without reason. You don't have to listen for meaning. Not even if it feels like a song that's been waiting too long. A tune formed in the space between two yawns, one held back and one released, both carrying the same quiet rhythm, as though your body has learned how to sing without voice, not loud enough to wake anyone, just soft enough for sleep to recognize its shape. You don't have to remember it. Not even if it feels like something you've always known but never been allowed to keep. A melody that floats through a house where no one lives, not abandoned, not empty, but still, as though time has slowed down just long enough to let music drift between rooms without being heard, not played, not sung, just existing in the corners of walls and under floors like something too gentle for memory. You don't need to find it. Not even if your feet feel lighter when you walk through quiet spaces. A note that lingers after a door closes, not loud, not sharp, but deep enough to vibrate in your bones like something left behind by absence itself. Just the echo of sound without source, like a chord played once and never repeated. You don't have to identify it. Not even if your hand rises slightly as though trying to catch it before it fades. A melody that moves through the air like dust in slow light, settling on surfaces without leaving a trace, just enough weight to make you feel it when you close your eyes, not loud, just present as though something has been humming for years beneath the silence of rooms no one walks into anymore. You don't need to follow its path. Not even if each step feels like breathing through water that doesn't drown but only holds. A chord progression drawn in air with a finger too tired to lift again. Only the ghost of pressure left behind, as though someone once traced it across space and then let go before finishing, not broken. Just stopped halfway between one feeling and another. You don't have to complete what was never meant to be finished. Not even if your hand drifts up like a question with no answer. A piano key that remembers how music feels, but has forgotten the shape of notes. Pressed down once in memory only. Now still as though waiting for someone who won't come back, not broken, just quiet, holding space between two silences longer than most people live through. You don't have to press it. Not even if your breath catches at how soft that silence really is. The window blind trembling from a draft no one sees. Just the faintest flutter of fabric where sunlight hasn't touched for hours, but still remembers what light feels like when it falls across wood and skin alike. Not cold, just full of quiet motion, as though time itself hesitates before moving on. You don't have to pull it shut. Not even if your fingers twitch at how close the air is to trembling. A half-remembered tune that isn't in any songbook, only carried through someone's breath when they thought no one was listening, like a sound made by accident and kept anyway because it didn't hurt, not lost, just held somewhere between what you've heard and what your body knows how to remember without proof. You don't have to find the source. Not even if every muscle in your chest feels lighter for having listened. The wire that once carried music but now only hums with memory. No signal left inside it, no current, just a faint warmth like something still warm after being touched too long ago, not broken. Just quiet and waiting without purpose or name. You don't have to reconnect anything. Not even if your hand wants to trace its path through the wall. A door that swings on hinges worn smooth by years of almost opening. Only enough motion to let air pass, but never quite letting light in fully. No one's walked past it in so long. Not since someone stopped walking at all. You don't have to step forward. Not even if your feet feel drawn toward the edge where shadow ends and floor begins. The rhythm that lives inside a yawn. Long enough for thought to fall out of mind before returning again like something forgotten while still remembered, deep in bone. Not sound, just motion without meaning, not music, but close enough that you do know which is older. The feeling or the form it takes when no one's watching. The melody folded into a blanket too thin for warmth, woven from threads of half-awake breaths and quiet steps taken in bare feet on cold wood. Not loud, just there like something learned before language existed. You don't have to unfold it. Not even if the folds feel familiar as your own pulse. The chord that forms when a clock stops ticking. Not silence at all, but sound held inside time itself. Like music made by stillness between heartbeats. No one plays it, yet every room remembers how it sounds after dark. You don't have to hear it. Not even if the air shifts slightly as though something just finished singing. A tune that drifts through a hallway where footsteps never fall, not empty, but full of movement without body. Like sound exists before anyone makes it. No one walks there now. Yet every wall seems to know how music should move when left alone with its own shape. You don't have to step into the hall. Not even if your feet want to follow where only memory goes. A note that comes from a place not quite inside or outside. Something just beyond reach of hand and eye, but close enough for breath to catch in throat like it's been waiting all along. No name, no source, no proof except how it settles behind the ribs when you stop trying to find its beginning. You don't have to answer, not even if your chest rises as though responding. The melody that lives inside a closed book, written not on paper, but in spaces between pages where time doesn't pass and words are never read. just held like breath before it becomes speech. No title, no author, only the quiet impression of something once meant to be said aloud. You don't have to open it. Not even if your fingers curl slightly as though remembering how. A sound that isn't made by anything at all. Just air moving through a room where nothing moves. Not chair legs scraping nor curtains flapping, but still, somehow. The impression of motion like music passing under floorboards without being heard. You don't have to listen. Not even if it feels familiar as your own resting rhythm. A hum that rises from beneath wooden floors. Soft and low enough never to be called a tune, yet steady enough to feel in teeth when sleep is near. Not loud, just constant like warmth returning after long absence. You don't need to trace its origin. Not even if the walls seem to vibrate with something older than sound. The breath that holds a melody too small for ears, but large enough for heart. Held between one inhale and next exhale, as though music is only possible when no voice speaks it, not sung. Just carried like warmth through dark air, until you forget what silence feels like without it. You don't have to carry anything, not even if your lungs remember how. The chord that plays itself in the corner of a room where nothing has changed for years. Just dust floating and light falling at an angle no one notices, yet somehow perfect, not played by hand or machine, but simply there as though it had always been. You don't have to name what's happening. Not even if your body remembers how to sway without moving. A melody that lives in the space between two words said too softly for meaning. Just breath and pause where language ends and feeling begins, not spoken. Just held like something almost known but never learned. You don't need a beginning or end, not even if it feels older than memory. The quiet after music stops, not silence at all, but sound still in the air as though time paused to let echoes settle before letting go again. You don't have to fill that space with anything, not even thoughts, just stay where you are. It's okay for nothing to happen now. It's enough if no one comes through the door, if no voice calls your name, no hand reaches out. Just this air, heavy and still like a song never meant to be sung aloud. You don't have to hold it, not even when parts of you remember how. A single thread of sound that never quite settles, just hovers in the air like dust caught between two windows where light doesn't touch but still holds shape. You are not required to follow it anywhere. The hum from beneath floorboards is no longer coming up through wood, but now rising as a weight behind your ears, warm and slow and thick with absence. Not loud, just present enough that breathing slows down on its own. The place where the ceiling has forgotten how high it should be, so light falls at an angle like something paused mid-turn. You don't need to notice what's missing. Only let yourself rest in the slant of air. The sound isn't real or imagined, just held between two kinds of quiet. One that waits for a word and one that knows words are not needed. There is no beginning, no ending. Just this breath now, thick with something faintly familiar like an old sweater left in a drawer where nothing changes. You don't need to remember its color or weight. The chord lives behind your shoulder blade, not played by anything, but felt as pressure beneath skin when stillness settles too deep. It doesn't ask for attention. It only exists, humming just below the surface of thought like warmth after cold. You are lying on a bed that is no longer quite there, not real enough to hold you, yet solid enough to let go into. Your body breathes without effort as if sleep were already breathing for it. A faint vibration in the wall where only silence should be, not wind, not footsteps, not anything mechanical, just a slow pulse like something remembering how air moves when no one is listening. Your hands are open on top of blankets, palms up, fingers slightly curled as though waiting to receive what never arrives. It's okay that they don't close. A memory shaped like stillness. Not an image, not a word. Just the quiet after music stops and you realize time didn't move at all but stayed right where sound left off. Your pulse is no longer racing. It isn't even counting anymore. It's lying down with you in that space between breaths where nothing moves except air. A melody slips through a crack under the door, not loud, just soft enough to make your eyelids heavy without trying. There's no name for what enters, only how it settles behind the ribs like something left behind by accident and now returned. The room is breathing with you, not in rhythm, just slowly, in time with emotion too slow to notice unless you stop noticing everything else. Your feet are not cold anymore. They feel full, filled with warmth that doesn't come from heat, just presence. Like something has finally arrived and decided not to leave. The sound is no longer outside or inside. It's in the space between thoughts where nothing needs a shape, yet still feels warm enough to touch. You don't need to think about whether you're dreaming. There's only this weightlessness, soft as cotton that doesn't tear when held. A note hangs near your collarbone like something forgotten by mistake. Not loud, just real in the way things are real without explanation. Your shoulders aren't holding anything. They've let go so long ago, they don't know how to remember what it was. No weight on them now, but stillness that feels like care. The air is thick with something not quite sound, more like a feeling of music having passed through. leaving behind only the space where it stood. You're not thinking about anything at all, not even your name. Just lying there in this quiet room made up entirely of breath and absence. A single strand of light from outside falls across the floor but doesn't move. Just sits like a promise that never needed to be kept. You don't need to look where it ends. The blanket is not covering anything important. Just your body, resting in place without purpose or demand. No reason to wake up now, even if someone called from far away. There's nothing behind the eyes but softness. A quiet that isn't empty because there's still something moving under skin like wind through dry grass. The melody is gone. Or maybe it never came in the first place. What remains is not sound or memory, just this warm heaviness beneath your chest where breath settles and stays without rising. Your fingers don't twitch anymore. They lie flat as though they've been waiting for something to happen, but now that nothing does, there's peace in letting go. The walls have stopped being walls, not because you're imagining them away, but because the air between has become so still it doesn't feel like separation. A long breath lasts longer than a thought, and another one follows without needing to be named. Just breathing now as though that were enough for everything. There's no need to remember what was lost or where you came from. Only this, the air moving through your chest in slow, even waves like water under ice. Your thoughts aren't fading. They're not going anywhere at all. They've simply stopped being loud and started just being there, quiet as shadows on a wall that never needed to be seen. The silence isn't empty. It's full of the kind of stillness only found when no one is watching. Nothing needs fixing, and time doesn't know how to hurry. Your body has stopped trying to stay awake. It's simply lying down in its own way, like a book left open on a table where someone once read, but never closed it, now just resting with pages still spread out. You are not listening anymore, not because you're asleep, but because there's nothing left to listen for. Only this softness that moves through your chest without needing an object. The air in the room is no longer moving. Or maybe it's been so quiet all along that movement never had a chance to matter. There is no place inside you where something needs to be found, just stillness, thick and deep like soil after rain, not cold, not dry, just full of what doesn't need to do anything. You don't have to say anything. You don't even have to think about saying it. The quiet has already said everything that needed to be said long ago. Your heart is no longer beating for you. It's just doing its thing, slow and steady like a clock with no hands, but still telling time in the way only bodies can. There is no direction now. No need to go anywhere or remember how things were before this moment. Just lying here as if your body had always meant to stop moving. The world has softened into air, not because